name is Nicholas Chizik. I guess I'm an instructor here. I'm a graduate student in the Theater and Performance of the Americas program at Arizona State University. So a lot of my research is focused on queer performance, looking at queer performance through generally dramatic texts. So when I was a little kid, I begged my mom to be put into dance like my older sisters, mostly because my older sister always got these fabulous sequined tutus, and I always wanted to wear one. And so whenever my mom was out of the house, guess what I would put on? So that's kind of where it stems from. And then in my master's, I got the opportunity to try it out for the Pride Week, and I just loved getting to dress up just like Kesha and embrace my inner Kesha-ness. That's where she started from, I guess. Mm-hmm. She's been a lot of fun kind of finding what's my specific angle in her. Because if you've seen all the variety of drag queens out there, both in popular culture as well as in like the dirty like nightclub scene, they all have something fresh to add, which is why I love drag culture. So I'm finding out what's the fresh, cool thing that I get to add. Her name is LeBlanc. The way I describe her aesthetic is a mixture of Katy Perry's California Girls meets the dirty, sexual nature of Kesha. But I'm also working on developing her own like one drag woman show of her finding her family. So a lot of things that I've been finding about drag is I understand my drag person because it's in connection to other drag people, so there's like that family core. I'm from Iowa. They were all about bringing together very old, very 1920s, 30s, 70s characters to life, and they were all about attention all on me. And so when I got to Phoenix, could not wait to see the gay culture here, because growing up in Iowa, basically where I was, there wasn't a lot of gay culture. If it was very in the shadows, and I got the sense right away here that there was a boom, there was an open space for that. So I went to Charlie's, which is where I first interacted with a drag queen, and it was on Latina night, and I was like, how fascinating, this idea of celebrating someone other than just white gay culture. And so I saw Latina drag queens performing in Spanish, and I was like, I've never seen that before. And then when I got to actually interview this drag queen who was in charge of setting all this up, it was inviting and not inviting at the same time. Like, she made it very clear she wanted to incorporate everybody, all the identities that met at Charlie's, which is what the club scene is usually about, and inviting everybody to partake in the glorious feast of gay. And I think it was also at the same time I was like, oh, how do you get part of the show? She's like, I gotta see you work. I have to see you before I invite you to be part of the show. And I was just like, what an odd disconnect. Like, come be part of the show, but don't unless I know you. Drag says gender is a performance and a construction. If I can put on these clothes and that is it that tells you about my gender, then there's such a superficial understanding of what gender is and how we construct it outside of the queer community. Oftentimes we use drag as like the performance, and that isn't an identity in itself. And I think it's interesting to think, what if my drag queen or my drag kingness was an identity altogether, such as my race or my age or my gender?
Carrington Valenzuela, also known as Neve McKenzie. I'm the first Miss Gay Arizona in Arizona history to go her first time to Miss Gay America and place top 5. I was born, I guess I was always told by my family that I could learn to dance before I could ever walk. So I was always doing community theater, dancing, choir, drama, all that. And so when I turned 21, I was always coming out to the clubs and dancing, doing all that shindig stuff. And some queens have always told me, you know, you should do drag, you're tiny, you're petite, you can dance, you should just do drag. And I didn't really want to do it at first. So I eventually got peer pressured into doing a contest here in Arizona for Barbara Seville, who's another legendary queen. And she had a newcomer contest, and now I'm here. And to go and not only to win here at the state and to get, you know, the recognition and the love and acceptance from the community as Miss Gay Arizona America, and then to go on to Miss Gay America and compete and do that, and like I said, place top 5 has just been, it's a high like no other. When I first started doing drag, I was kind of, my relationship with drag is it's a spiritual one. I moved away when I was 19. When I came out to my family, I wasn't accepted, and so instead of letting the unacceptance of my family dictate my future, I decided that I deserved better for myself, so I moved away. After I kind of grew up and the light bulb kind of turned on, and I understood what drag meant to my community and what it means to the people that come to see the shows, you get a sense of love and pride in what you do every time you get dressed up and when you perform. I don't look at my drag as a way of being a woman. I look at it as, and it's theater to me. I can hear a song, I can connect with it, wear any costume that I want with it, and make it my own. But at the end of the day, the makeup comes off, and it, Nevaeh is back in the closet until the next performance. I don't go out in drag. I don't hang out in drag. I don't stay at home and wear heels all day. Unfortunately, I think that's the biggest misconception is that people, not only in the LGBTQ community, but also out of it, they think that we want to be women. Phoenix definitely does have a scene in itself, especially in the pageant world and competition world. It has slowly but surely developed into becoming a state that people look out for as far as entertainers are concerned. The Phoenix gay community, there's a huge sense of that word in itself, community. Last week, we did my second annual fundraiser for a friend of mine who's going through stage 3 testicular cancer. And we started the Kick Cancer's Ass fundraiser last Wednesday. And we had a goal of $500, and he walked away with $1,100. So he was able to pay for his final surgery. Again, that is the perfect depiction of what it means to be in the Phoenix community, and it's the word itself is community. That this community always steps up for whoever needs it, for whatever organization, at whatever fundraiser there is to be, they've always stepped up.
I'm Dr. Rosemary Dombrowski, and I'm a senior lecturer on ASU's downtown campus. I've always been interested in performance art of all kinds, but maybe more so in recent years, gender-bending, shape-shifting kind of performance art. I've always had an interest in drag, and I think it's probably one of the more visible ways in which we sort of question identity, in which we play with gender identity, in which we recognize the spectrum of gender identity. And because it is so visible and in your face, I think it's one of the most powerful forms of art that questions gender identity. I advocate because I think being a poet, I recognize how important it is to take those marginalized voices and bring them to the fore, or that otherwise would continue to be marginalized. And so I think everybody, whether they're an identifying member of the LGBT community or not, should be exposed to something like drag, should be exposed to a group that might otherwise be marginalized, performing their identities and creating agency for themselves. In some ancient tribal societies, though, there is acknowledgement of multiple gender identities, more so than in, let's say, contemporary society or contemporary Western society. So I think sometimes what we see in other countries is a hearkening back to a more historical understanding of an in-betweenness or a third gender or a fourth gender or a fifth gender, and that seems to be more well respected, like it is in indigenous culture in the United States as well. There's a huge drag industry in Southeast Asia. It's very legitimate there. The pageants are taken very seriously. I think when, sometimes somebody says they're Miss Drag America or Miss Drag Arizona here, a lot of people will raise their eyebrows and think, oh, I can't imagine why you'd be saying that out loud. But that's not the case in a lot of Southeast Asian countries. It's a really coveted title. I think that there was more of an underground feel to it 15, 20 years ago. Certainly we don't have the visibility of the LGBTQ community in major cities like San Francisco or New York, but we're starting to shed some of our repressed nature in Phoenix. I think the Phoenix is rebirthing right now, and so hopefully a lot of different marginalized communities, including the LGBTQ and the drag community, are going to have renewed visibility or increased visibility, maybe for the first time, and respect and dignity, and feel like they can be part of the larger Phoenix community and feel like that community is working in solidarity with them. I see it moving in that direction, so I certainly hope so.